Hey everyone, here's another study. It's white to plain win. And what I'd say this about this one is the ideas themselves are relatively obvious and they flow quite naturally. We have this black king on h5, hemmed in by their own pieces or their own pawns. And we have these white pieces that are very close to giving a check. The knight can jump into f6 or g7 and give a check. White has a light squared bishop. It can give a check to the king that's on a light square. And also our king is close at hand to help out. And so I think the challenge of this puzzle is to try to calculate all the way to the end. Because actually there are different points where you might get stuck and or you might miscalculate and fumble. And so it's a very cool study. I really like this one. Definitely encourage you to try to solve it on your own. And I would say, the threats are obvious. It does flow. It's kind of like a Rube Goldberg machine where once it gets started, it kind of goes very naturally. And there's not like an intermediate point where you have to figure out some eureka idea. So, in terms of the first move, I think king f5 is the most obvious because it cuts off the black king from g5 and g6. There's not really too much else to look at. Like the knight is perfect here, ready to hop in for a check. You can't really remove the bishop from this diagonal because you drop the knight. And yeah, if you go somewhere else with the king, it leaves the g6 square free for black. So after f5, the only thing you have to account for is where the queen can go. And actually, the queen only has 4 legal moves. 2 of those don't work. If the queen goes to g7, then white just captures with a knight, gives checkmate. Same thing with e8. And actually, if the queen goes to g8, white can also give checkmate because the f6 square is not covered. So the black queen has to go to f8. And here, there's a couple options. We have these checks to consider. Also, we might consider moving the bishop somewhere down this diagonal so it can give a check this way. If we take a tempo to prepare this move, black can take a tempo to give us check. And now the queen is out. Our king will be forced away from the black king, and black's material advantage will lead them to win the game. So we do need to do something right away. And yeah, it's important to calculate diligently. Like if we take on f6, this is stalemate. And so the only option, again, the logical flow, the natural flow of the threats is to check on g7. And even though that gives up the knight, we actually only need one piece to give checkmate. Like the king has no legal moves. And so all we have to do is give a check. We don't have to have the piece that's checking cover additional squares. And knight g7, there's a couple benefits of this move. One is that it deflects the queen away from covering the e8 square. The other one is that it frees up the 8 square so that the bishop can go there. So this is forced. And now, give this check. Also, forced response from black, interposing with the queen. And now we trade. And when I was doing this puzzle, I think I was just looking at it on a piece of paper, trying to do it without moving any of the pieces. And I had got to this point, and I thought, okay, well, black's pawns are rolling now. We're no longer threatening checkmate. This must be the wrong solution. And I kind of stopped there. But actually, this is the right solution. You just need to calculate a few more steps. And it does seem like, okay, black has all these pawns that are about to promote, and all we have stopping it is this h3 pawn. But if you just calculate a few more moves, you'll see actually the black's king is still stuck. And if we go back to f5, again, black only has one legal move. And here we actually give a checkmate. So I think from the starting position, maybe you could have guessed that we're going to checkmate the king on h5. But would you have guessed that we got rid of all these pieces and that this h7 pawn came all the way down here so that we can checkmate with the h3 pawn? I think that's what's really cool about this study is it is kind of the checkmate that you expect, but actually it's not really how you expect to get there. So this is a very cool one. I really like it. And the reason I titled it this way is because when I was growing up, I heard this story about this farmer who was growing a turnip or a radish. He would, sing to it, water it every day, and eventually it became an enormous turnip, and it was so big he couldn't pull it up. And then basically, like, the story was he had to get someone to help him, like, his wife tried to help him pull up the turnip. She couldn't they couldn't do it together, so then they had to get, like, their kid, and then they couldn't do it together, and finally, it was, like, all these animals and people pulling on, in a chain trying to pull on this turnip, and finally, the mouse comes at the very end. The mouse pulls on the cat, who pulls on, the dog, who pulls on the daughter, who pulls on, so on, and then the turnip comes up. And so, in this checkmate, uh, all these pieces that were more important than the pawn uh, helped, but finally it was the little pawn in h3 that gave the checkmate.